Hi guys, Miss Francis here, and today we're going to talk about photosynthesis. It should come as no surprise that photosynthesis is our next unit, since cellular respiration and photosynthesis are almost opposite reactions. The outputs for cellular respiration are the inputs for photosynthesis. Now, I bet every day you, similar to I, walk past plants and we pay them no mind. They don't make a noise, they don't really move except for being blown by the wind. Yet these organisms are vital for our survival. So by the end of this unit, I hope you gain an appreciation for plants. So let's jump in. Photosynthesis is the process that plants do in order to capture light energy or solar energy from the sun and then convert it to chemical energy, which is stored in sugars and other organic molecules. The organisms that do photosynthesis are called autotrophs because they can produce their own food. In other words, they produce their organic molecules from carbon dioxide and other inorganic raw materials obtained from the environment. They are known as producers. They produce their own food. On the other hand, two types of autotrophs are photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs. So photoautotrophs are the ones that we commonly think of, our green plants, algae, where they use light as the energy source. Chemoautotrophs harvest energy from oxidizing inorganic substances like sulfur and ammonia, and this property is unique to bacteria. So for example, the bottom of the ocean, there is no light, but there are organisms down there known as cyanobacteria that will actually use hydrogen sulfide released from thermal vents at the bottom of the ocean. They do chemoautotrophy in order to get their food. On the other hand, heterotrophs like us, we must consume. We must obtain our food. We cannot make our own food. I can't go outside, get a suntan, and feel like I'm fed, right? So I need to live on, or heterotrophs live on, organic compounds produced by other organisms. Therefore, we are completely dependent on phototrophs, photoautotrophs, for food and oxygen. And unfortunately, human activities such as deforestation, burning fossil fuels, and climate change are really putting pressure on these photoautotrophs. They're having a negative impact on organisms that do photosynthesis. Another type of heterotroph are known as saprophytes. These are your decomposers. They feed on dead organisms. So what are chloroplasts and what role do they play in photosynthesis? Well, any green part of a plant has chloroplasts, where chloroplasts are found mainly in the mesophyll or the middle cells, forming the tissues on the interior of the leaf. So the mesophyll is that middle layer where the majority of the chloroplasts are going to be found. So here, if you're looking at a leaf cross section, this is the mesophyll. Remember, you've got your stomates, you've got your xylem and phloem, and that would be located in the leaf. So like we said earlier, any green part of the plant is going to have chloroplasts. Well, what makes it green? It's this green pigment called chlorophyll, where chlorophyll plays an important role in the absorption in capturing that light energy. So let's just for a second revisit the structure of a chloroplast. Things that you might want to include in your picture of a chloroplast, things that you need to know about, are the fact that chloroplasts have a double membrane. Remember back to the endosymbiotic theory. Chloroplasts are also going to have what's called a stroma. Stroma is almost equivalent to the matrix in the mitochondria. It's that fluid area. It's going to contain 70S ribosomes, circular DNA, as well as enzymes for reactions to take place in. Then you've got your thylakoids, and your grana, which are stacks of thylakoids. So like I said, each chloroplast has two membranes. That's the double membrane around the liquid spot, the stroma. The thylakoids are the membranous sacs, where if I stack those sacs, they're called grana. There's evidence that has been used over time that has enabled researchers to track atoms through photosynthesis. In other words, where do the inputs end up as far as reference to the outputs? So if you look at this balanced equation of photosynthesis, originally scientists thought that oxygen came from carbon dioxide. Well, how did this even come about? There were some key scientists that played a role in the discovery of photosynthesis. We're going to highlight three of them: Joseph Priestley, T.W. Engelmann, and C.B. Van Niel. So Joseph Priestley did an experiment with a bell jar. He took a candle and a mouse, put it underneath a bell jar, is what it's called, that essentially forms a vacuum. Both the mouse and the candle died. Then he put a mint plant in with the mouse and the candle, and the mouse lived and the candle stayed lit. This provided evidence for the fact that plants produce oxygen, but scientists still didn't know where this oxygen comes from. So Joseph Priestley showed that plants produce oxygen. Scientists originally believed that this oxygen came from carbon dioxide. Along came C.B. Van Niel, and he studied bacteria that used hydrogen sulfide, not water, for photosynthesis. When these bacteria did photosynthesis, they still produced sugar, but they did not make oxygen. So they used carbon dioxide, but didn't make oxygen. Therefore, how could carbon dioxide be the source of oxygen? So this led to the idea that the oxygen actually comes from photolysis, from the splitting of water. What scientists did was they used radioactive labels to show that the water did in fact provide the oxygen. So scientists labeled carbon dioxide with radioactive material. They labeled water with radioactive material. And what ended up happening is with the water, the oxygen was radioactive. With the labeled carbon dioxide or tagged carbon dioxide, the oxygen was not radioactive. So that further shows that it had to have been the water that provides the oxygen, right? So here I'm going to tag the water, the oxygen in the water. It still comes out as radioactive. Here I'm going to tag the carbon dioxide. The oxygen released is unlabeled. So the conclusion is that water is the source of oxygen produced by photosynthesis.